Okay, let's talk about it. One of the biggest questions you'll ever ask yourself, should I buy a house? Now look, this isn't about me trying to convince you to buy or not to buy. My only goal here is to help you get clarity. We're going to walk through a brutally honest guide to figuring out if this is the right move for you right now. So let's get into it. You see it everywhere, right? Everyone talks about homeownership like it's the ultimate goal. But the question we should be asking isn't, is owning a house a good idea? It's, is owning a house a good idea for me? And that's a totally different ballgame. We're going to cut through all that noise and get right down to what matters for your life. So for most of us, this whole journey starts with a classic push and pull. On one side, you've got the dream, right? Building that equity, getting some stability, finally being able to paint the living room that weird shade of green without asking for permission. But then there's the trigger, that email from your landlord saying rent is going up again. Or you're just so tired of begging for repairs. Or maybe you just saw another friend post their "we bought a house" picture on Instagram. It's so important to figure out which one of these is really in the driver's seat. And that's where we're going to start our quest. We have to look at the question behind the question. It's all about understanding your true motivation. Before you even think about looking at Zillow, we have to ask, why now? Is this coming from a place of solid personal goals, or are you just reacting to feeling frustrated? So let's talk about some major red flags to watch out for. If your main reasons are seeing what other people are doing or feeling pressured, that's a warning sign. Or if you can't really describe what's good about it beyond just building equity, And if "I hate my landlord" is like 80% of your entire motivation, definitely a red flag. Same goes for trying to race the market, worrying about interest rates or prices. Making a huge decision based on a reaction, that's a shaky foundation to build on. All right, so let's say your motivations are feeling pretty solid. You're not just reacting. Now it's time for our first big test. I call it the mirror of stability. A house is this huge, illiquid, long-term thing. So we gotta ask, is the rest of your life stable enough to actually support it? Okay, this is where you might actually want to pause and do this. I'm serious. For each of these categories, give yourself a score from 1 to 10. How stable is your job, your income, your career path? Be brutally honest with yourself. A low score in one of these areas isn't you failing, okay? It's just a piece of data. It's a risk. A potential career change in the next couple of years, that's a huge factor you need to acknowledge right now. So if you did the math and your total score is over 70, that's a green light. That's a good sign that your life's foundation is probably stable enough to handle a commitment this big. Now, if you landed somewhere in that 55 to 69 range, think of this as a yellow light. It's not a no, but it is a whoa, slow down. There are some big question marks here that you have to address before you even think about moving forward. And if your score is below 55, that's a red light. And please hear me when I say this. This is not a judgment on you or your life. It's just a clear signal that right now, things are probably too unstable for a decision of this size. And let's be absolutely crystal clear about this. A red light is not failure. It's the opposite of failure. It is successful risk management. You just did something incredibly smart. You identified a huge potential risk to your future, and you decided to protect yourself. That is a win, a huge win. Okay, so if you've made it past the stability check, congratulations. But now it's time for the next trial, the True Cost Gauntlet. This is where we go way, way beyond that simple rent versus mortgage payment and look at what it really costs to own a home. Right now, as a renter, your costs are pretty straightforward, right? You've got your rent, maybe renter's insurance, utilities. But the most important column on this slide is the one on the right. Think about everything you don't pay for. The water heater breaks? Not your problem. The roof starts leaking? Not your problem. Property taxes? Nope, that's all on the landlord. This is your starting point. Now, let's look at the other side, the homeowner's list. Wow, it's a lot longer, isn't it? The mortgage is just the beginning. Now you've got property taxes, homeowner's insurance, and this is the big one, a maintenance fund. People say you should plan on saving about 1.5% of the home's value every single year for repairs. That's non-negotiable. And that's before we even talk about the one-time costs, like closing costs, inspections, moving, buying a lawnmower. It all adds up fast. And this all leads us to a really critical and often overlooked truth. In most places, for the first 5, maybe even 7 years, owning a home actually costs more than renting. Let me say that again. It costs more. The goal of buying isn't to save money next month. It's a long-term play for stability and equity down the road. So we've looked at your why, we've checked your life's foundation, we've stared the real numbers in the face. Now for the final trial. Let's call it a vision quest, or maybe just a test drive, to see if the day-to-day lifestyle of being a homeowner actually fits who you are. Seriously, I want you to try this. For 1 week, just pretend you're a homeowner. Go on YouTube and watch a couple videos on how to fix a running toilet. Does that make you feel empowered or just anxious? And then drive through that neighborhood you're dreaming about on a Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Is it still charming? And finally, ask yourself the big one, the Sunday morning question. You wake up, a pipe has burst, water is everywhere, it is 100% your problem to solve and your money to fix it. How does that feel deep in your gut? Ultimately, what this all comes down to is your values. There's no right or wrong here. Just look at these 2 columns. Which one feels more like you right now? Do you value the freedom to pick up and move for a new job? Or are you craving putting down deep community roots? Do you love that your landlord handles repairs? Or are you dying to have creative control over your space? Only you know the answer. So just take a second. Imagine 3 different versions of your future. In one, you buy a house right now. In another, you keep renting, but you take the difference in cost and you invest it aggressively. In the third, you just wait 2 years and then you look at this whole question again. Which of those futures, which path feels the most you, the most aligned with the person you're trying to become? Okay, you've made it through the quest. You've looked at your motives, your stability, the money, the lifestyle. You are now at the decision gate. And I want you to remember, the prize for all this work isn't necessarily a house. The prize is clarity. So after going through all of this, what do you think the most common outcome is? You might be surprised. For most people who do this honestly, the answer isn't, yes, let's go buy a house. The most common and successful outcome is actually deciding to stop or to wait. Yeah, we have to completely redefine what success means here. Success isn't signing the mortgage papers. Success is making a strategic choice that saves you from 30 to 50 grand in closing costs and immediate repairs. It's saving you from years of financial stress, from being trapped in a lifestyle that just doesn't fit. Deciding to stop is a huge win. And this brings us to what might be the hardest, but also the most important truth in this whole conversation. Here it is. The people who benefit the most from this process are often the ones who don't become homeowners at the end of it. Think about that. The biggest winners are the ones who successfully dodged a massive financial bullet and a huge personal mistake. That's powerful. So look, in the end, you're not here looking for my permission or anyone else's. You are looking for clarity. And now you have the tools to find it. You've done the work. So the only question left is, what's your answer?